Welcome everybody to the second episode of Bite Sized Pod. Today we're going to get into Gunman's Proof. What is Gunman's Proof? Anyone want to try to answer that?
The spiritual journey.
Self-discovery.
I second Miguel.
An Exodus.
I just realized, did you like want to introduce ourselves? Did you do that already?
Oh yeah. So who's here with me? Who are all these voices?
Hey, you got Corbin.
You got Miggy.
And you got the fool.
I mean, that could be any of us.
You got four of them.
No, this is Iggy.
Well, the game, it blends Western and sci-fi themes together for a really simple, really funny and engaging story. It's definitely, and no one on the internet will let you forget this, heavily inspired by The Legend of Zelda. But I really appreciate it. It felt like its own game, not just a ripoff. What did you guys think in that respect?
Yeah, I think the style, the pixel style and the humor in it made it feel like a completely different game. Almost like an Earthbound kind of Shin-chan element to it. That was what I felt from my experience on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely reminded me of like watching a lot of like Sergeant Frog anime and that kind of level humor. And it was I thought it was great because you just don't get that in a lot of other games, especially in the US. It definitely took it to another level beyond, something that, any Legend of Zelda game could offer.
Yeah, especially in a wacky setting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes no attempt to take itself seriously or its characters or any part of it, which I think is great because they take full advantage of that and just go and run with it, which is I guess the story does change a little bit. For me, it changed after a certain point close to the end, where it does get a little more cheesy and more a predictable type of story. But the beginning is great, and I love it. I love the humor. The dialogue was great. That's probably my favorite part. One of my favorite parts of the game.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so the setting it takes place on the Strange Islands near the American Old West in 1880. You guys all know the Strange Islands, right?
Yeah.
I live in the Strange Island.
It's like right past the Weird Islands, right?
Yeah, I think so. South of Florida.
Yeah.
West, under Texas, somewhere. I don't know.
Definitely under Texas.
Right past El Paso.
Yeah,
I have a problem with that because it's so green and it's so lush. And like I mentioned, we were dealing with temperatures in the upper hundreds for weeks and weeks, and I was very frustrated that that's not what the real Old West is like.
Yeah, there's like what?
I wish it could be like that.
There's one desert in this game, right?
There's okay.
Half a desert.
That's the other thing. It changes. It's for such a small map. It changes terrains like within a few yards. It seems.
It's the Galapagos of the United States.
Or I was laughing just thinking about this, that it was a Wild West, but I've never seen any Wild West theme set on an island. And I guess they just arbitrarily chose an island because, like, just to limit the map, right?
Yeah.
just to
explain
limit
how small it is.
Yeah. That's really funny, though, to picture this whole Wild West theme, but on a desert island.
Yeah. So basically, we'll get into a little bit of the story of the game. What happens is two meteors crash on the island, the Strange Islands, and no one really cared at all that these meteorites crashed into the island until aliens started attacking the people. Sometime later, a young boy sees a UFO crash in front of him, and two tiny aliens emerge. One of them named Zero, the space sheriff, apparently. He explained that an intergalactic criminal escaped from them and is hiding on the island. The boy becomes an earthly host for the alien so that they can search for the fugitive. And this gave me hardcore Ultraman vibes. I don't know about you guys. It's basically the same exact thing as Ultraman, but in a Western setting.
Yeah.
And I love it. It was cracking me up.
It also gave me, I mean, it was obviously like super Earthbound, though, too, at the same time. Earthbound and, I already said it, Sergeant Frog, too. That was like the biggest influences, almost more than like A Link to the Past in a lot of ways.
I could totally see that, especially with the humor. Let's go over our first impressions of the game, though. When you guys first picked this up, I don't think anyone had played this yet, right?
Nope.
I recommended it because I had never played it and always wanted to. But what was your guys' first impression jumping into it?
I mean, I was expecting something a little bit closer to Legend of Zelda, just because like everything I was reading was saying how much of a ripoff of A Link to the Past it was. And in a lot of respects it is, but it is wildly different. Even just in the gameplay, it's way more arcadey than Legend of Zelda ever is. So it was fun though. Like it was a lot of fun to play. So it was a little different than what I was expecting, but way more fun than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
and the humor landed for me, so I really enjoyed that.
I definitely never got a highest score in Link to the Past. I don't know about you guys.
And every time I collected a treasure, like through the first like couple dungeons, I was like, I can't figure out how to use these items though. And then I realized it's just for a score.
Yeah.
So that was great. Just even like, I don't even know if that was purposeful, like in a funny way, but just to play with those expectations a little bit. Like that was pretty fun.
Yeah. What about you, Iggy?
Like I had seen some images of the game and it did resemble Legend of Zelda, obviously, but I was not expecting it to be kind of a Western kind of, gunslinging child in an island. But the art style instantly kind of grabbed my attention as per usual. That kind of has always an effect on how I kind of get involved into the game. And the visuals really nice, very well done graphics, the music as well. These are always things I look at before I start playing a game, especially in the cutscenes that they show at the beginning. And instantly I knew it was going to be a very comedic and very silly game. So that just made the game a lot more satisfying to just see where these characters, the type of background that they're in, and just mess around, talk to all the townsfolk, which is what I do all the time.
Yeah,
and you always get really funny.
What about you, Miggy? Oh, there he is. He's chewing.
I got food in my mouth.
Yeah.
Do not ever edit that out, by the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Any chewing sounds?
I went into this one pretty blind because I did not partake. I contributed nothing to the initial episode other than I played. But everything else, like behind the scenes, I had nothing to do with. So when that was the suggested one, that's the first time I had heard of the game. And I did zero research on it before playing. So I went into it completely blind and I loved it. It wasn't until after, when I was trying to get help with the game, that I started seeing all these other reviews. And the resemblance to Legend of Zelda is pretty heavy. But I think the fact that I didn't go into it with any expectations, like it's just a game and I'm gonna play it and try to enjoy it for what it is. I mean, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a great game. We'll get into more of the mechanics of it and flaws that it has, because no game is without its flaws. But I think Super Nintendo has, for me personally, some of the best visuals games. I just love that type of art style, and I think this one takes full advantage of the capacities that the Super Nintendo had, which it makes it a great game for me. It was really short, but it was hilarious, and I really love this game.
I mean, they had a long time to take advantage of those Super NES tips, because this game came out January 31st, 1997. So
oh my goodness.
PlayStation 1 had been out for a minute.
Wow.
And actually, in Japan, this game came out the same exact day as Final Fantasy VII. So imagine, put yourself in that situation. Like you walk in the store and it's like, do I get Gunman's proof or FF7? I think I get this game.
This game was DOA.
Yeah.
Never had a chance.
Well, especially, did you guys find out its tagline? Like each game has a tagline. It's Strange World.
Strange World.
Not it's a Strange World.
Oh, it's Strange World. 2 exclamation points.
And it is too.
Was this at the end? Was this one of the last ones for the Super. Well, I guess Super Famicom because it was only a Japan release.
Sounds like
Or
it was
was
really
it, or was this the last game released for?
yeah, it sounds like it's post Super Famicom almost.
Yeah, I mean, like at the height of the what I meant, like at the end of the last game's made for, or the last game made for Super Nintendo. Super
I don't know
Famicom.
specifically what it is, but this has got to be a contender.
I mean, by that point, I already had a Nintendo 64.
But let's get into the pros and cons of the game. The game, as we've mentioned, has a lot of Western and sci-fi themes. Was this a pro or a con for you guys?
Definitely a pro.
Yeah, bro. I loved it. The Western sci-fi is such a cool genre, and I mean, it is overused in a lot of ways, but I feel like it just is just so cool. It almost always pays off for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I would play something with this theme over like an English fantasy theme any day. I'm so tired of that.
Yeah. Or even like a
It was
space
so
theme. Like this was way cooler than just regular space, you know?
Yeah, it
Like,
was really
this is-
refreshing.
I think it works well because it plays off on like the weird wackiness of it all. Because like
Mhm.
even the story is very weird and wacky, and just having these weird mix of just bizarre characters that are from space, but they don't really look space-like. Well, I guess I mean that do know that they kind of just take over certain things and then just. Anyways, it's just a weird, wacky kind of element that just plays really well into the theme of it all.
I think it's hard to do that type of theme well because often people try to take it to it's two very opposite themes, a Western and a sci-fi. It's like at the end of the spectrum, practically one or the other. So I think what a lot of people miss is that they try to make it like a serious, to try to take it seriously, and this game doesn't at all. Like even from the characters to the enemies, I mean, it's all complete nonsense, and it's poking fun at it, and which I love. I absolutely love that they take full advantage of it. And I gotta say, it's very accurate in some ways. Like you definitely give a young kid a gun down here in Texas and have him shoot at random.
Squirrels.
Very, very irresponsible. I think that I think that was done perfectly.
I did think that was funny because it is the same trope that like just some 8-year-old kid saves the world, and whether he has like a shield and a sword, or you just hand him a gun, like either way he's gonna save the world.
It's funny because I had thought of that too, but the way they make it kind of makes sense is that he's technically, actually, you are kind of the spaceman controlling a little 8-year-old kid. So that's kind of funny the way they explain that, because that's how they also explain like when you meet the sheriff's daughter and you're like, what do you mean you don't know my name? Because obviously we as the players don't know her name, but they play it off as like something completely different. So it's kind of funny the way when you put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, for me, it was definitely a plus for all the reason you guys stated. It's just way more interesting to me to just make it silly. I don't want it over serious. Especially you just look at the sprite work. You're like, this is not going to be serious. And I'm so glad. But the story, is that a pro or is that a con for you guys?
For the most part, pro, because it doesn't take itself seriously, as Miguel was saying earlier. There's obviously some tropes that were kind of very dismissive, where you could just dismiss them, but overall, because of how the characters interact and the humor, it works pretty well.
I think the story is not strong for me, in all honesty, which, I mean, like we mentioned again, it doesn't need to be for this game. But it's like nothing to write home about. It's something to kill time, to have fun with. Of course, I don't know, it might be the bitter old woman inside me talking, but I'm so done with like romance and adventures. So when the game changes to that, I mean, it's done at like towards the end to add a little romance in there too, which it's fine. It's fine, but for me, it's overdone, and it's like I mentioned, that just might be the spinster inside me speaking. That's done with that. But I think
picture yourself as an 8-year-old kid playing this game in 1997.
See, even then, like it's
still a spinster.
Yeah, still a spinster. I've been a spinster since birth.
I can dig that.
I'm the bitter bridesmaid in any situation, but but it's very bland, and it's nothing, like I mentioned, it's nothing to write home about, which is great. It doesn't need to be.
I agree with that.
I actually think I would put the story in the con section. And I'm separating like story from like the actual humor or dialogue. But I think that, I mean, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I think the humor and the dialogue is so strong that it actually would have really benefited from having more story in it. And I think that you get to talk to a lot of people, but there's nothing that's really progressing. That it's so funny that they could have really played off some funny things there and had some funny storylines. You know, not that it's going to be a heavy story or like something that has to be like epic, but I think they actually could have done a lot with the story and it would have really been funny. So it didn't really detract from me, but I think I would still throw the story in the con.
Yeah, it's like a non-consequential con. It's just like,
Yeah.
It could have used a little sprucing, but overall, it's still good. Yeah, for me, I'm pretty neutral about it. I guess I would put it as a con too, but trading that, if it would have been really wordy and daunting and following you everywhere, the dialogue, that would be a con too. So it would have been, there would have had to been a balance there for me for it to be a pro or a con. I guess I'd rather prefer this than too much required story.
Yeah. I did think like there was like a couple storylines that they almost started that never went. Like there was a whole thing like with your parents, like when you first walk in and your dad's like really, you know, just going crazy. He's really abusive, but like he changes every time you beat a dungeon, obviously, and that is funny.
It's really funny.
You don't really get any character development. You're just getting these little like snippets, and like they didn't really. I don't think they would have had to expand on it much, like to make it even funnier. Mm-hmm. Like, or even like was mentioned when you meet I forget her name now, the sheriff's daughter, and you know, that's a really funny way to explain why you don't know anybody's name and you need to introduce yourself to everybody. But like, then you don't really have any interaction with her until almost the end of the game. Like, she doesn't really say anything meaningful to you until it's almost over and she gets kidnapped. So like, there could have been a lot of funny things that happened in between to keep progressing the story and just make it a little bit less arcadey and a little bit without going too story heavy, like too much into an RPG or something like that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if just after each boss you took down, maybe everyone in the town's dialogue went a little deeper or developed a little bit, and they just explored some more angles in that regard.
Yeah, for the most part, I did notice, because I am the type of person that after I do something, I accomplish something, I talk to pretty much everybody. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of dialogue from a lot of characters, but some characters did change their dialogue. And the sheriff's daughter, I think Sarah was her name, she did, every time she was like placed in a different part of the map almost, and she had something different to say, but it was mostly her just being skeptical of who you were until the reveal to her that it wasn't actually you, it was a spaceman, which I think was, you know, it was simple but fairly well done in my opinion.
I think Corbin has a good point with that, with role the dialogue plays in like storytelling more than the actual like cutscenes or what's it called, the exposition parts of the game. There's that merchant that you need items from, but you never know. I mean, he could have kept even dialogue. Even the dialogue could have been kept pretty cryptic. But
you only need him
nothing.
twice.
Yeah, I forgot about him.
He's there as a important part of the game in order to complete it, but you get no dialogue from him that's worth anything other than here you go.
And every time you talk to him, he's just happy just for you to go up to him and talk to him. He's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you came and talked to me. It makes me happy." And that's all he says.
Yeah.
The last thing he says, I should have wrote it down. It's translated really bad. Like the very last thing he'll say to you is like, it doesn't even make sense. Like that was just funny.
Yeah, I did catch that a couple of times. Like I was like, that doesn't make sense as a sentence.
It must be the Strange Islands American accent.
That's it. Yeah, always forget about that.
Southern accent.
Yeah. For me, a heavy pro was sprite work. I think that was actually that above all other things made the game for me. I don't know how you guys feel.
Oh yeah.
I'm looking at the one of Cactus. The Cactus. I don't even know what she's doing to.
I thought it was funny. Like I have the one of the dad punching the kid, and then you realize where the kid gets the punch from. Like one of your abilities used throughout the game is you can either shoot your gun or you can punch, and now I get why.
Yeah. Yeah, it's genetic.
Yeah. Honestly, this is some of my favorite sprite work I've ever seen on the Super Nintendo, actually.
It was so cool. Like every enemy, every person, even like it just in the dungeons and like the world map, like it's just everything was so cool. Like to look at, it really did make you want to explore things. I thought like it just really engrossed you in the world.
Even the main character that you play as, like whenever you get like a new weapon or you get like a new item that you can use, like that's amazing sprite work to like make like the whole, like you can swim, so you have these goggles, and like even the detail that they put into that of being able to move around. So yeah, even with like the character work, the sprites are very well done.
I actually downloaded the sprite sheet off the internet, and a lot of the sprites are actually split in half. They're so big, which is really cool, and it gives a lot of flexibility to the character that I thought was really cool. It's a lot of programming, a lot of dedication, definitely.
That was what was going through my mind.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would have changed or explored more? Like thinking
as far
from
as
like
the sprite work?
Yeah, just like artistic perspective.
I'm pretty satisfied with how it looks personally. I think it's pretty cool. I did think one thing that was pretty cool that they did. At first I didn't like it, but then after I beat the game and I thought about it, it felt like you had no inventory, right? You guys felt that way?
Yeah.
At first that was a con to me, but actually by the end, it was kind of a pro that you picked up the random items, because I thought about games like Link's Awakening where you have 2 buttons, and it's an amazing game, but you are always going through your inventory. Like 40% of that game for the Game Boy, you are going through your inventory. So I actually thought in some respects it was kind of nice, and it made the gameplay really smooth that I almost never had to pause or mess around with inventory.
That's true. I would put that in the pro too. That was like almost refreshing to like just play it almost like you would an arcade game.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, even just the way you collect, you're not even really collecting new items. You're just gaining those, you're able to gain like different weapons with limited ammo. But and then when you progress, like there were some items that increased your defense and other stuff, but it wasn't like you had to equip something and then like sell, old stuff and figure out what you want to keep, what you don't want to do, like what stats it's affecting. Like you didn't really have to worry about any of that. If you found it, it just gave you a boost, and that's cool. Just like kept playing the game. So I like the other crunchy aspects of other games, but for this game it worked really well. That's a good point. That's like, I think that's a good pro for me.
Yeah, at first it was a con, but then when I put it down and thought about it, I was actually like, I really thought it made the gameplay really fast and just snappy. Well, let's get into humor. Miggy, where do you put the humor?
Oh, I love it. This is right up my alley. This is my kind of humor, and I was very, like I mentioned, since I came into it with zero expectations, I was very pleasantly surprised to see that it was very quirky. That's a strong pro for me.
It just
Our
makes
favorite
me
character too.
Oh yes,
Speaking of humor,
Roboton.
Roboton.
just while we're talking about Roboton for a quick second, I thought it was hilarious that not only is his character ridiculous, like, you know, every time you grab that carrot from an enemy and he comes like falling down and then strikes a pose, and then he really doesn't do anything for you. Like, it's never useful. It's just funny. It's really not useful to do
It's
that.
funny because it grants you invincibility and like extra speed.
It's
But
like
it's like,
but you're in the world, like you're in the overworld
Yeah.
that you don't even really need that. Like
it's a quick way to clear an area if you want to.
that's true.
Get back
But
in town.
it's just so funny to me
I-
that it
it's
almost
kind of-
did nothing that productive.
yeah.
Well, the funny thing is that it would come up at like random moments, especially at times where you wouldn't need it, because like you would like defeat one of the bad guys and then they would appear, but it was sometimes like one of the last bad guys that you would defeat, so it's kind of pointless. Or sometimes it would appear like right before you were going to enter the village, which is ridiculous.
Sure, yeah.
I thought it was funny too. Like, okay, so this is jumping a little bit ahead. So the last boss battle, right? You have to find a carrot to get there.
Exactly.
Like, that was funny to me. Maybe you guys found it really quick, but for
Wait,
me,
I didn't even know that.
yeah,
You have
I had
to.
to like go and look around for a carrot for probably like 2 minutes.
Yep. Well, mine was like just a minute, but yeah, the whole thought of that was funny.
You need Roboton to get to that last.
Yeah, which I thought was great, but
I forgot about that. I think I just found it. I think I found it really quick by accident.
I really started doubting myself though. I was like looking for the carrot for like 2 minutes. I'm like, this is not even how I get there, like at all. Like, I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
find the entrance and then he'll let me in or something, you know.
That's what I did the first time, and then I thought maybe I gotta go talk to the spaceship, my other buddy, and he was like, "No, just go get Roboton." I was like, "What does that even mean?" I was like, "Maybe I just need to find a carrot."
Yeah.
But anyways,
I thought it was funny. I don't know if you guys noticed too. Every time you got a carrot and Roboton, you know, he came down and you can ride on him. He had a different costume. I think he has like 6 different costumes. And
Those
they're
are
all
great.
pretty. They're all pretty funny.
The Sailor Moon one is my favorite.
yes.
You guys are funny. I like
Yes.
the one where he's like on the ground, like sleeping or like falling over.
Yeah.
So
It's
great.
great. I mean, that's also part of the humor, part of it too. But it's just so funny. I mean, you need Roboton. He's pretty useless in the game, but you need him to get to the last level.
And to get out.
And even then, he's left behind because he's deemed as completely unnecessary to the mission. He failed his mission. He's left on Earth for another 50 years.
I thought that was the best. Like,
That was
ending.
so perfect.
But
for
that was
him.
funny because in the beginning he said he was really growing fond of like Earth. So I was like, well, you know, it all works out.
It was happy. It was a happy ending.
I think plot twist. He never ended up getting picked up. He's still there. He's still
How
on
long
Strange
does it-
Islands.
I mean, has it been 50 years
Yeah,
since '97?
that's true.
How long do horses live? Because I had to figure maybe you have to find another
Host. Yeah.
host. Yeah.
What about the gameplay? Where do you guys put that?
I thought it was a pro too. I thought it was great. Like the gun wielding was like spot on. I didn't even know you could strafe, and I still enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. Played it in hard mode without straight.
Yeah,
We had no idea. They never tell you. They don't tell you anything.
That's crazy that was a thing. I mean, it took me a while. Like probably until the third or fourth dungeon to remember that we could crouch too and crawl, which was a hilarious animation.
Oh yeah.
Also,
It didn't take me that long because I crawled everywhere. Like half the time I was crawling because it's so funny.
Does not surprise me.
Yeah.
This is borderline a Rugrats game.
Yeah.
Honestly, that just made me think of Shinchan, like straight up. It just looked like it was Shinchan just crawling on the floor.
That's true, yeah.
Some of the mechanics were a bit annoying. Like, if you were to get a different weapon, especially like if you were to get a different weapon on your punching button, like it was annoying because you would have to waste, either the drill or the ball and chain or whatever to be able to use your regular punches.
That's true, especially later in the game when you have certain areas that you can only access with that super punch. Like that does get a little bit annoying, like especially like
the
if you're trying to
rocks.
explore. Yeah, you're trying to go up a waterfall and you're like, oh shoot, I have like 6 ball and chains. That's true. That is kind of annoying.
If you go into it expecting more of like an arcade style game, it's great. But I think that's where a lot of the hate comes from, that because it's so aesthetically similar to Legend of Zelda, and it even takes a lot of its artwork or even the layout from Legend of Zelda. I think if you go into it, then it's very disappointing because you go in expecting something and you get something different. But if you think of it as purely as an arcade game, I think it's great. Pretty straightforward. There's, I guess the one thing that was a little bit lacking was puzzles. I think the lack of puzzles or even reason to the dungeon, because all you really needed was to get to the boss. There's no point in looking for the treasures, although you do get some upgrades for weapons, but in order to know which ones and which ones aren't, like the way it's set up at the beginning gives you nothing about finding like a stronger gun or improving your punches at some point by looking inside of chests inside the dungeon, because you're kind of conditioned to think of like treasure chests, or at least for me, it was conditioned to think of the treasure chest as just treasure, which was pointless. Because the game score is completely irrelevant to.
Well, if you look at my ending score, then you know that I completely agree with you. That treasure was irrelevant and score was irrelevant.
Yeah.
I have a hot take for this game. This is controversial. This is the best Zelda game I've played in 20 years.
I think gameplay wise, you're right. Like strictly gameplay wise, it is like a better Zelda.
Yeah. Like for me, this is personal opinion. Open world games are a little overrated. 3D games for me are a little overrated. I'm a very 2D guy, I understand the appeal, but for me, this is just fun. It's way more fun to me. I like the grid-based, dungeon crawler. It's fun.
I respect that.
Yeah, I will agree though that.
What's that?
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh no, I thought there was actually a lot of elements that were kind of like a mystery dungeon game. That was pretty fun too, like the collecting treasure and stuff. It obviously didn't operate the same way. I think this game was clearly confused as to what it wanted to be as a game. I think it knew what it wanted to be as a concept, but something was lost in translation there, and it still ended up being really fun. But I just think a lot of time it felt like with the game mechanics that the development team kind of thought, well, we can do it. We can add a score. So let's add a score.
Yeah.
We can add a bunch of money in the game. We can create money variables.
Oh yeah, that was useless money.
Let's just add a bunch of money,
Yeah, money I did not understand.
And it didn't even
all.
like add to your score at the end. I thought, well, maybe
no,
add to your score
at least that.
We can add it. We can add it. We can add it to our score. Why not?
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's going to help me out.
In that sense, it was a lesser Zelda game for me. I stopped thinking about it as a Zelda game because it did not feel like it. The gameplay was different, and so I wouldn't even consider it a Legend of Zelda in any. I mean, just the sense of the sense of like the dungeons, having dungeons, those elements very similar, but everything else just felt very different from Zelda.
It's kind of weird because I thought some of the dungeons were so cool in their concept. Like the one, like you jump in and you're like, you're partway through and you're like, oh wait, this is a dungeon. Like I didn't even realize it was a dungeon or that you had entered it, you know? And that was so cool. But then the like Miguel was kind of saying earlier, like there's no puzzles, there's no purpose to most of these dungeons. It's just a barrier to get to the boss. And I mean that's ultimately what every dungeon really is, but most do it in a better way to like Legend of Zelda does do it in a better way to really help you see this is where the boss is, but there's these barriers, and so it makes the whole dungeon itself feel more purposeful. This game didn't really have that, even though it was like really fun concepts for dungeons.
Yeah, there's kind of that dialogue to Zelda that if you've never played a top-down Zelda, you don't get like, oh, push block and it opens door. You know, like there's that language to the dungeons. And I think if this game would have found something different, but in a
like without copying it,
it would have really benefited. Like, yeah.
And actually, there's a Zelda game. Actually, I think it's Ages. That's the one for the Game Boy Color that does a similar concept to that of the town in a volcanic town. If I'm not, I could be mistaken, but where you kind of just go into the town and you have to switch between times to figure that out.
And this game was even before that, which is crazy.
Yeah.
That was 2000.
It had a lot of cool ideas. There was a lot of cool stuff floating around, but I do wish the dungeons were just a little bit more like, I don't even know if challenging is the right word. Challenging or maybe even just purposeful.
Fleshed out a little bit more. Because I think the art style of this is beautiful, and I think the dungeons do a really good justice to it. Like it's very detailed. There's no... I mean, sure, there's a lot of like patterns or repeats of certain, I guess, like floors or walls or stuff like that. But they try to change it up here and now and then, where you have like, some bricks falling over, or you have holes or stuff like that. And I think that part's really cool. But there's a good marriage between like art or the sprite work, the artwork, and then adding like some complexity to the dungeons that was not fully utilized, which probably would have helped the dungeon situation a little bit more. At least make it interesting. You know, instead of just trying to figure out what's the quickest way to the boss, because that's what it comes down to for me anyways. And I never explored this, or I never put it to the test, but I wonder, you get scores based upon how fast you complete the dungeon and how much treasure you find, how much HP you're left at the end of the battle. But obviously there's a trade-off, right? Like if you go searching for treasure, you lose out on time. But I didn't pay enough attention because it was irrelevant. I was like, it was irrelevant, but I never paid attention to like how much it would affect you. Like if you actually took your time to explore the entire dungeon and get all the treasure, would you have a higher score than if you just got through it quick and got through the boss quick? Or
you know what? That's why I have a low score, because I was exploring. That was it.
Oh wow! Yeah, because I will say my highest dungeon rank was a D. Like I never got higher than a D rank for the end dungeon score.
I don't even know if I saw a D.
That was my last dungeon. The last dungeon I got a D.
Oh wow, that's funny.
Yeah, I was like, I beat the boss on my first try. I'm like, what do I do differently? I forgot time was a factor.
All my other ones, I got Fs. All of them Fs.
Yeah.
So have we even really like scraped the potential of this game? Maybe there's a whole nother challenge mode.
Could be, man.
True. Rank it. Oh, you know what? Like legitimately though, like that actually, like if you refocus to think of it as an arcade game and just really try to get the high score, that like adds like another level to like speed runs too.
Yeah.
Like for guys that are I mean, I'm not personally like super into speed runs, but to have the game keep a high score for you, like calculating all that stuff, that's kind of a cool thing.
Zelda meets Pac-Man meets Granny. Beat 'em up. We got it all in one package here.
That's quite a pitch. I think that's solid.
Well, since we got into dungeons, let's get into boss battles. For me, that was a hard probe because,
so good.
I thought the concepts and the designs were so good. Some of the patterns were really simplistic or even broken. But what did you guys think?
I think this was an aspect. I mean, I don't want to keep comparing it to Zelda every time, but this was like one aspect that it completely crushed Zelda for me. Like, I thought the dungeon or the bosses were so much better. Like the dungeon or the boss designs in Zelda are really cool, but they're always like hit them 3 times, goes to the next level, hit them 3 times, they're dead, something like that. Like they are ultimate simplistic, like ultimate. And this was like really cool for me. There's like a handful of Zelda bosses I think are really cool. And this one, I was like, I thought I had more fun in general.
Yeah,
for
for
a whole
me,
game.
like Zelda bosses that stand out to me are Link's Awakening ones. You know, you
Mhm.
throw the pot and then you can hit the boss. You jump over the spiky roller and you can, you know, like things like that. But I do agree, a lot of the early bosses, it's just kind of like once you figure out how to do it, you never have to do anything else.
Even the later bosses too, like even in newer Zelda games, like they don't, for the most part, like some are pretty interesting, but I don't know. They kind of just follow into that same pattern, which makes it feel like a Zelda game, but it just,
It
I don't
doesn't
know.
scratch that itch for me personally.
Yeah, it's not like creative enough, you know? It's not that it's not always challenging, it's just not like that. This one just felt really cool to me, and I didn't know how much health the boss had. It wasn't like I just hit it 3 times, or it wasn't super obvious, like, you know, how close you were to beating it. It didn't have a health gauge or something. So,
Yeah.
I don't
I
know, I
like
just thought those were really fun.
the first boss, you know, me and Mickey were texting about it, and it was like I found out on accident like how to beat it because I kept hitting it forever, but then I realized like, oh, it's a totem pole. So you start at the bottom,
Yeah.
that's the pattern, and work your way up. So I thought
Yep.
just little bits of programming and care were put into it. That was really cool to see.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I will say is that for the Zelda games, I do know that. Well, I kind of like that they implement the kind of weapons that you get. Like you have to use the new weapons that you get to defeat certain
Yeah.
bad guys, which kind of adds a new element of sorts. And sometimes you can combine. You have to combine certain weapons to defeat certain bad guys. This was in the sense of like the gameplay is just shoot the bad guys until they die. There's
Well, there
very
was
I felt
more
like there was
variety than that. Like with
I
the
felt that
mech
it was
shoot and stuff, you had to figure out what to hit first. You had to destroy the arms, and then like, there
yeah,
was a
but it was
process.
to
which
me
I
it
liked.
felt a little bit more minimal. Let's just shoot here until that is taken down, then here until that's taken down, and now just shoot the main thing.
To me, it,
Um,
it felt more up to par with like a Mega Man boss battle, where
Right.
you have to memorize the pattern, and
Mhm.
that will allow you to win more easily.
yeah, because then you kind of get the hang of it, and you could just stand in one spot and like he will not hit you.
Actually, I think Mega Man is a good comparison because that has that same, like, the bosses are super challenging
Mhm.
until you figure them out, like until you crack that code of what their
Mhm.
pattern is, and then you could. It's not really cheesing it, but it's just you just finally learn that pattern.
It feels
might
that
take
way.
you a few tries, yeah, but
Yeah.
then it's like once you beat it, you're like, okay, that was easy. But I thought it had that same kind of style.
Yeah. So I'm a pro. Corbin, you said you're a pro. Iggy, what would you say? You're a con or a pro on that one?
I'm neutral.
Neutral. What about you, Miggy?
Yeah, I'm pretty neutral on it too. Just because it tries to blend different things, like having weak spots for
Mhm.
some characters. What I do like about it, that there's no indication, which can be frustrating at times.
Mhm.
But I guess it adds to the challenge. There's no indication of where those hit boxes are. You kind of have to just
Yeah.
shoot and figure it out.
Am I hitting it or not?
Right, exactly. Which is the other frustrating part of it for me, which really doesn't leave me too much into the pro, is that some of the hitboxes are a little frustrating. The way the bullets and the framework lines up, it's a little frustrating to get a hang of it and to really line up your shots. There was one, I think it's the one in the tower, right? The one where you have to save the sheriff's daughter. I think after the third phase, that was super frustrating because of the speed that he takes and trying to put yourself in a blind spot, which I don't think that one had a blind spot. So I went through like quite a number of lives. I would say like maybe 5 lives.
Is that where he's
before-
firing off the fireworks?
Yeah, well, see, and I went into it without fireworks, so it was just gun.
Because for
And,
that one, I just stood in the bottom left corner and took no damage for the whole firework phase.
So
Mm,
for that, it took me forever because I just kept shooting the fireworks and they would explode and I would get no damage. But the moment I would shoot them, like the firework missiles, whatever, he was already gone, so I wasn't able to shoot him. And that was kind of it. Just took me longer, but I don't think I lost any lives on that. It was just kind of annoying to figure that out.
yeah,
I'm kind of wondering how I figured it out because I remember I beat it at like 1 in the morning or something, and I don't even remember playing the final boss. I just beat it on my first try, and I was like, "That's insane." And I'm kind of like, you guys are talking about it, and it's making me second guess how I figured it out.
Yeah, final boss for me. Final boss was easier. Okay, so that's probably the other thing that I was trying to lead into. Like the difficulty in boss is not linear or it's not exponential. Like it's really just how lucky you get.
Yeah,
Ooh,
that's
like-
so true.
Like the stronger you get too, it makes it easier to beat other characters and bosses too. So once I get like because I don't know what you guys chose, whether the defense or the strength. I got the strength and yeah.
Corbin really didn't explore.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that's part of one of the things that you get when you explore.
Oh my god.
Did you not get that either, Mickey?
I got it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That
Yeah,
was-
so
that-
you find this
Wait, am I
thing
the only
gives
one?
you a different pair of trousers. You can get attack trousers or defense trousers.
I
Yeah.
missed out on attack trousers?
Yeah.
Yeah. So once I
Oh
got that,
my
everything was
goodness.
super easy. Everything was dying real quick.
Oh,
Get
New
those
band
purple
name.
trousers.
Attack trousers.
yeah.
Attack trousers.
Get
And
them
we'll be
purple
the
trousers.
rival band defense trousers.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
so
man.
by the time I got to the second to last boss, he was easy to beat. And the last boss was extremely easy to beat. I took no damage whatsoever in the entire fight.
I actually thought at that final boss rush, like, and then you go in, you do the boss rush of previous bosses, and then you go into the last boss. I literally, for a moment, was like, "Oh, I'm actually not even gonna have to fight him. Like, he's just this little guy. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you defeat all these other bosses again, and
Yeah.
then you get to him, and he's just like, "Oh, I give up."
That was
That
great.
would have been
That
really
was-
funny, actually.
That was pretty funny. But yeah, that was like I really struggled with the second one with the ninja. That was the second one, right? The ninja one was super frustrating for me. I had a super hard. That's where I had to get help from YouTube, and that's when I came to the realization that the crouch button was actually for
Oh, yeah.
battle, not just to squirm around like a worm through the map. Like it has a
True.
purpose. It has a purpose. That one was really, really frustrating. That's one of the few times that I broke, and I was close to saying, you know what, I'm done with this game. I don't want to play anymore. But and then there was
That would
others
have been a
was
funny
super-
discussion if you had quit after the second
Yeah,
dungeon.
I hate this game. I did not love this. No, it was so there's the difficulty, and then I didn't think the sisters fighting the sisters was pretty difficult. I mean, and it seems pretty, to me anyways, it seemed like a pretty uneven fight. You got a gun and they're using punches.
Yeah.
You know what's funny?
Bring
is I
gun
thought-
to a knife fight.
I thought
They're
about
doing
that
a
after the
spinning bird
fact.
kick.
Yeah.
I thought about it after the fact, and I was like, "You just learned the ultimate punch, right, from the Karate Master." I didn't
Yeah.
use it once.
You
in
just
that
shoot him.
fight. I was
Nope,
just-
you just shoot 'em.
Yeah, they even
Yeah.
teach you.
Man.
They even teach you how to use a shoryuken, and you just use it to climb waterfalls.
Yeah.
For the
Oh,
most
this won't be
part.
for battle, yeah.
I mean, I think you can use it if there's a villain up on the hill or something. But I mean, it's so easy to just shoot him with the gun because it could just pass through mountains, hills, or even like borders. And if they shoot you, they won't go past it. So that was like a really interesting handicap.
You can't knock those sisters though, because I thought that was a great dungeon.
It was so
I thought that
funny.
was actually I thought that was one of the funnier setups. Like
That was with the monkeys in the business suits.
yeah,
right?
that was
Yeah.
so
It
good.
was so funny.
That was such a great dungeon.
It was very ridiculous.
Well, let's go on to music. Where do you guys put music, as a pro or a con?
Pro.
Oh, for sure, pro. Yeah, music's amazing.
Same here. It's pretty strong music. It's a pro.
Yeah, it was fun
Yeah.
for me. I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but I thought it was pretty cool. The game, I wouldn't say it has a dynamic soundtrack. I don't think Corbin even got to hear the soundtrack really at all. He just heard it out of play.
I heard it out of order,
separated from the game
Yes.
experience. Let me say
I
that.
know the soundtrack and I know the gameplay, but I know them separately.
Well, one thing you missed out on that I thought was pretty cool is after you would beat a boss, like the scenario would change, and so would like the overworld theme. So I thought that was pretty cool. Like the tone of
Okay,
the
that's
music
awesome.
changed. I don't know if I would define that as dynamic, but I thought that was really cool for the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's some really cool thinking.
I mean, I
True.
did notice that there were certain themes that repeated itself, but like then explored new themes and dynamics like within those
Oh.
songs. So I noticed they were repeating, like, or they
Yeah.
had similar ideas like that throughout the music. So that does explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a really cool idea. That's an amazing idea for a game
I thought
to
it was
build
a-
off its music.
I thought it was a cool idea for such a small map.
Mhm.
I was gonna say that.
Always have to hear the same song over and over and
Yeah.
over.
I was gonna say that for being such a short game and such a short map, it was interesting to see how much they actually put into making all these different variants of songs in it. So that's why it's definitely a pro. And the production of it is really well done. The sounds and yeah, it's just very pleasing to listen to.
Yeah, it had a very like spaghetti western soundtrack. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, actually did have like really good Western. Like it didn't feel like Western music, but it had like those ideas and those concepts and kind of like a homage to a lot of that. But it was a good blend, like for the genre that it was trying to be. I thought the music like
Mhm.
fit it really well for being
I
like
agree.
wacky, but also like techno and also a little Western. It was a cool mix.
You don't hear that every day. That's for sure.
We
Put
can
down
now,
in the-
but
I did put down in the notes that there was a lack of collectibles, but then
what?
I really thought about it, and it's actually kind of untrue. There's a lack of collectibles, maybe that have an overwhelming purpose, but then I even kind of thought that was untrue because I realized I skipped 2 offensive upgrades too. I guess Corbin skipped a bunch, but
I mean, I guess I
Um,
skipped more than that.
yeah, because there's two upgrades for the gun. You get a pistol and then a magnum.
Okay, I did get the Magnum.
Oh, that's good. I did not get that, so I played in hard mode, I guess. But I had the attack travel. So
I think
guess
we
it
all
evens
played
out.
in hard mode, just
Yeah.
different hard modes.
Yeah, the hard mode wasn't that hard, but
Yeah.
there's 2 upgrades for the punch too. I don't know if you guys got those.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. I only got one of them.
think
I got a
so.
steel gauntlet glove.
Oh, you can get it up
yeah.
to a gold one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get
Yeah.
that one.
I got the gold.
Oh,
That's why I was getting F on my dungeons.
these dungeons are looking like my report card in high school.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize there was upgrades to the fist until because I never used the punch other than to break rocks. That's the only time I ever used it, or to climb. Well, I guess that wasn't really a punch, but to climb the waterfalls.
Yeah,
That's
true. I never used the punch either. I just upgraded it.
I did not miss the punch upgrades.
Yeah.
and then there
You
was
did
the
not.
trousers to collect, and then there was zeal coins, which increased your health points. There was probably like 4 extra ones on the world map scattered
Yeah.
throughout, so that's pretty cool.
I think I found a couple. Found like
Hey,
2 or 3 of those.
This is how I got the highest score. Well, spoiler:
Wow.
I collected crabs. You collect crabs on the beach.
Oh,
Well,
Really?
I collected a lot of crabs, and I still got a really poor.
I mean, if we're
They give
talking
you
about
10
poor
points.
scores,
Yeah, no, they give you 10 points.
I know
wow,
crap.
that's crazy. You know what? I thought it was really cool though. Like now that we're talking about it, all these upgrades that were very optional, and they kind of affect how hard the game is as you play it, but not super. Like you could probably get no upgrades and still beat this game fairly
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But that's very reminiscent of Metroid too. Like
yeah,
those style games is very arcadey, like platformer, but it's there's so many stuff to explore, which I mean I guess this game doesn't have a ton to explore, but what it does have is optional, and that's kind of cool too. It's like you kind of have different experiences every time you go through the game.
that is a good point. Man, we've compared this game to just about everything. Everything but like Animal Crossing or The Sims. But
We'll just wait till the next point.
Oh,
yeah, that I was just about to say that. That was my biggest
you can
complaint.
you can definitely make that connection.
Yeah. So the next point is underexplored potential. So anybody
Yes.
want to get into some things they think this game could have done?
Wait, you said fetch quest? Are you trying to plug your game in here?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, unexplored potential. Definitely the world building.
Mhm.
That is, I mean, all these things are pretty big for me
Mhm.
that you have written down, but building is pretty big. Like, I thought it was cool. I mean, I guess the world building is really cool. Actually, I'm going to put that in the pro.
There we go.
You know what?
We can-
No, but like it's just not it could be much more, but what they actually had was really cool.
Yeah.
So I think the world building that they did was amazing. The actual map is too small. Like
Yeah.
they should have made the map bigger and they should have had more areas just because it was
Another-
so much fun.
Yeah, another town maybe.
Yeah, something like that. It felt small, but the world building that they did to like flesh out certain things and how certain areas felt was really cool. But it could have been cooler if there was like a little bit more.
I think in general, just the game lacked in a lot of departments. Where it's a great game, like I mentioned, Art. It's I loved it. It's a really fun game, but I think it definitely lacked development. And I think part of the reason was because of its release date, I guess, or what stage of the gaming world it came out of. Like we mentioned already, towards the end of the Super Famicom's heyday.
Post-mortem
Sorry,
pretty much at this
yeah,
point.
post-mortem, yeah. And I think it was a great, for me, the greatest missed potential was that it could have been like a great goodbye to the SNES Super Famicom era. But I think because of the rush in the development, a lot of ideas went unexplored or just kind of incomplete, which led to it kind of being pushed under the rug. And then I think the development company was also going broke. So it missed on the opportunity to release worldwide. It never left Japan, which was another missed opportunity. So I think in a lot of like different things, I'm sure you and Iggy will talk in a few more other points, but I just think in general, there's a lot of ideas or mechanics of it that weren't completely fleshed out. And like, again, that might've been just in the rush of things to try to get it out before it was completely forgotten. But I think if it had more time or a little bit more income to support it, it could have been one of the classics, one of the ones that went down.
Yeah.
I think it's really funny to think about this game as being rushed and still after the lifetime of the Super Famicom. Like they still missed that deadline, but it was rushed.
Yeah, it was done wrong both ways. I mean, you're already late. Might as well have made it worthwhile.
I was just wondering what other games this company has made, because I saw the company and that didn't look very familiar to me.
Yeah, there was ASCII was one. It actually has about, if you look at the start screen, there's about 3 or 4 development company names there, which tells me this game had issues. Like it had to go through a lot of hands and
yeah. So I think that also
probably all kinds of things, but it played smooth on the surface.
Oh yeah. I think that also has a lot to do with the result of it. But nonetheless, I mean, to me, it holds its own as its own thing for like the sake of, kind of mindlessly just playing through a game and enjoying it for the sake of that, the silly wackiness. World building, I mean, obviously there's a lot that could have, been worked on, but for the sake of like what the game was supposed to be, this kind of small map and them just kind of fleshing it out as best as they could, I think they did good enough. I mean, there could have been a whole other element, as you put there in your notes, like side quests. I would have loved to have had some side quests, especially from some of the town folks who don't really do a whole lot. They just kind of sit around. It would have been nice to have some of that element and make the game maybe a little bit more fun to explore in that aspect. But those are just some of the tidbits that I can comment on.
Yeah, I think for me, one thing that I really saw was the villagers have so much personality, like even just the way they're designed. And I would have liked to see more developed in that regard. I think too, like we mentioned, all these upgrades you could get were non-optional. Like Corbin brought that out. That was a good point. Why not then tie that to some side quests for the villagers? instead, and they gift those things to you. And I think that could have just made it just slightly more engaging in that respect. It's engaging in a lot of other respects, but honestly, I'd like to see a sequel or a remake to this, or a spiritual successor to this in some way.
Yeah, I
Personally,
think that would have worked like really well, like going back to what we were talking about with the story too, just fleshing that part out, like giving them a little bit more to talk about, get a little bit more backstory on some of them, where you're not like making it a heavy game with all this dialogue, but you're just having side quests that are optional, but like you get to learn more about the townspeople and see all those personalities that they obviously put like some level of effort into because
yeah,
they're so like, I don't know, they do have that personality to them. So that would have been cool. They really could have tied those like optional items and like boost with side quest and fleshing out the story. That would have been a really cool boost, I think, to the game. And definitely I second it for a sequel or something.
yeah.
That'd be so cool.
You mentioned the spiritual successor. I think you're working on that, Zach.
I definitely got some inspiration for this game, from this game.
Yeah, that would. Yeah, Fetch Quest has a high bar. If it doesn't have a
Talking horse.
horse, yeah.
That dresses up as Sailor Moon.
That would be a fantastic call to this game.
Right? Nobody would know, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
I think for me, if they could have like a remake or a sequel, I want a sequel with Roboton as the main. Like that 50
so
years
cool.
on Earth. Like maybe they
so
remake
good.
the game and then there's a post game. Maybe it's a farming sim and you're Roboton doing a farm
Dude,
for 50 years. Like
I
I don't know.
literally
They
was
did
just
every other
thinking that.
genre of game.
I was literally just thinking that this could be like combined with like a Harvest Moon type of game, and I think it would be amazing.
Yeah,
like those more like that than like a adventure platformer.
Or it could be the sequel as to seeing how he became the horse.
Yeah, that would be funny. I think also too, like if you do the farming genre, right, the farming sim, and then you can go out to these dungeons that they already cleared the bosses out and do like a mystery dungeon element, but you're Roboton because
he would be like
dungeons, so it'd be funny. He has to brave himself
missions.
up. He has to brave up himself to do the dungeons.
Yeah, that's perfect because he'd still be getting missions because he's getting like missions from his like alien commanders.
Yeah,
but he has to like moonlight as just a regular horse on a farm and help them out with like all the chores. And then once they go to bed, he's like dungeon crawling.
Would this happen also on the same island where there's limited space?
I think it has to.
With the same dungeons.
I think it has to.
Maybe Roboton gets a boat.
I think he conveniently finds another island that's right next door. It was like, it was like half a mile of water. It was just right there.
Then it could be like an Animal Crossing type of thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Visit other islands.
There's that Animal Crossing tie-in you wanted, Zach.
I knew it was coming. It had to. Okay, so we mentioned earlier this game has a life system. You get lives. It has a scoring system. So we're gonna go into our scores. Try to put you on the spot here, Corbin. In dead last is Corbin.
Oh man.
I'm not good with numbers, so I'm gonna try to read out.
I didn't see Iggy's score beforehand. I thought there was a chance, but I was pretty confident that I had to be dead last.
These are 8-digit numbers, so you get a lot of points in this game. What I think you did, Corbin, I think you didn't you didn't take a picture after you beat the final boss, because that pretty much doubled your score. Yeah, I think you did it just
after you beat it. It shows you.
Take it before.
Yeah. Could be because
I took an eternity on those dungeons. Like I would pause it and walk away. Like I would just leave it going. So I don't know. I was gonna say it wasn't weird to me. Once I realized that time was a factor, it wasn't weird to me.
And then in third place was Isai. Good hefty score there though. Miggy was in second. I thought Miggy was gonna beat me for sure. So I got first, but I credit it to I collected a ton of crabs. Literally, you can collect little crabs on the beach. I was like making sure I got a bunch of crabs because I thought Miggy was gonna like destroy me. So I collected a lot of
gave
crabs.
You points.
I actually learned this. Did you guys know if you have missing health and you collect a crab, you get 10 points and half of a health point. So apparently he's
What?
eating these crabs on the spot.
Yes,
He's not pocketing them.
He's not cooking them. He's just downing them.
So the crabs, and also I don't know if you guys bumped into the frog toads up in like northern section. If you beat them, they become into smaller frogs, and you can also collect them as well. But yeah, I was doing that for like the whole beginning of the game. As I was like losing life, I was just going back to that shore and just collecting crabs because I could just regain my health like that.
Some crunchy fresh crabs. How hard would it be to bite into a live crab?
This kid has to have no teeth at all.
Yeah.
He's also from the wild west, so I doubt he had teeth to begin with.
I mean, this was an alien too, so I'm kind of wondering, like, did the alien feel pain when he was eating? Did he just like power through it? You know, like he
or was it because it wasn't him and he was just inside the body that he just let the body take its toll? I don't care. It's not my body.
I'm returning this thing at the end of the day, so it's
I'm not feeling anything.
There's that renter's attitude.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in to the second episode. The next game we're going to play is Advance Wars for the GBA. So we invite you to play along, write to us, and let us know your thoughts on the game. So on Twitter and Patreon, you can find us there. Show your support at patreon.com/bite-sized-pod. That's byte with BYTE. And if you join there for just $3 a month, you get early access and a bonus episode each month. Any final thoughts on Gunman's Proof, guys?
It's a wild ride. If for nobody else, for Roboton.
Yeah.
Do it for Roboton. Yeah, it's a great game. I think I feel a little bit ashamed that I didn't hear about this game before. If I had had the chance to play it when obviously I wouldn't have when I was younger, but if it had an American release, and now if you can, through whatever means, get your hands on a translated copy, I mean, by all means, take advantage of it because it's worth the time.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. Very fun game, very wacky, very silly, but you'll have a good time if you just take everything that you may have in mind of it. Legend of Zelda, any other game, Earthbound, just play it for what it is and definitely enjoy it.
Yeah.
Play it for what it is and collect some crabs.
Yeah. I'm going to say everyone's always asking for Smash Brothers characters. I'm going to ask Roboton for Smash.
Oh my goodness. That would be so
the last
good.
one. That's the last
DLC pack.
Yeah.
That would never
That
happen.
would be so good. Oh man, I can't even imagine.
Who cares about Geno and what are the other ones that are always asking? Dr. Eggman.
Exactly. Who cares?
Who cares?
Want Roboton.
Roboton.
Roboton.